When the judge glimpsed the necklace, she collapsed. The accused was wearing the exact same one her daughter had on the day she vanished 12 years earlier. The courtroom was packed, whispers softly reverberating off the walls, mirroring the palpable tension. On the defendant's bench, Patrick Morris sat, his face calm, yet his eyes revealing his inner turmoil. He was dressed in a shabby suit that had seen better days, with a necklace draped around his neck. This simple piece held a profound, yet still hidden significance to everyone present, except for one. Judge Marta dos Reis strode into the courtroom with decisive steps, her presence shaped by decades on the bench. But that day, a shadow lingered in her gaze, a burden she couldn't dismiss. As she took her seat, her gaze landed on Patrick, and then she saw it, the necklace. Marta's heart skipped a beat. It couldn't be. The necklace around Patrick's neck was the spitting image of the one her daughter Laura had been wearing when she disappeared 12 years ago. She attempted to keep her composure, but her shaking hands betrayed the storm brewing within her. As the prosecutor launched into his opening statement, Marta's eyes stayed fixed on the necklace. Visions of Laura wearing that necklace, her smile wide as if the world was hers to conquer, surged back with crushing intensity. The prosecutor's words faded into a distant hum. Marta fought the encroaching dizziness, but the sight of the necklace dragged her down into a deep sea of memories and regrets. Her mind whirled, piecing together what had once seemed like random facts. How had Patrick gotten hold of that necklace? Could he be involved in her daughter Laura's vanishing? The possibility that he might be responsible for taking her child made her stomach churn. She attempted to breathe deeply, yet the air felt too thin. The courtroom walls appeared to close in on her, her sight blurring. Then, suddenly, Marta fell to the floor. The room erupted in confusion, with surprised shouts ringing out as lawyers and security guards scrambled to her aid. Patrick looked on, his eyes wide with confusion and concern. The trial was halted right away, and Marta was quickly taken to a hospital. Meanwhile, Patrick was led back to his cell, bewildered by the turn of events. To him, the necklace was a token of friendship, carefully preserved, linking him to a past now marred by false charges. Back at the hospital, as Marta came to, her complexion was ghostly, her eyes startled. She was certain that the necklace was crucial to uncovering the truth she'd been chasing for years. Doubts tormented her. Was Patrick really culpable, or did the necklace signify a deeper, more intricate story? The investigation took a new twist. Detective Samuel Richards, known for his acuity and doggedness, was tasked with digging into the necklace's past. Samuel, always attuned to enigmas that eluded simple explanations, sensed something was amiss. He started to track down where the necklace came from, conscious that this seemingly minor item might expose a web of secrets many wished remained hidden. For him, the necklace represented more than a mere trinket. It was a crucial connection between Marta's anguished history and Patrick's troubled circumstances. Determined to get to the bottom of things, Samuel dove into his work. Marta, meanwhile, was tormented by relentless questions. What was Patrick's real tie to Laura? Was she on the verge of learning what happened to her daughter after all these years? Samuel's office was a clutter of papers and files, a testament to the fervor with which he'd attacked the investigation from the moment Judge Marta collapsed in the courtroom. The necklace, now secured in an evidence bag and resting on his desk, seemed almost to shine under the harsh office lighting, as though it was whispering its hidden story, its secrets long buried. Samuel was thorough, a man who trusted hard evidence over conjecture, and his years on the job had shown him that sometimes the smallest details could unlock the biggest mysteries. He started by tracking down where the necklace came from, contacting jewelers and poring over old sales records. After days of tireless searching, he hit a breakthrough. The necklace was a custom-made item from 12 years ago, around the time Laura vanished. It had been purchased by a mysterious man who paid in cash and left no trace. This revelation only thickened the plot. Samuel was convinced that Patrick held the answers, and it was crucial to confront him to unravel this deepening enigma. The air in the interrogation room crackled with tension. Patrick's demeanor was composed, yet a certain exhaustion clung to him. A man long confined, continually proclaiming his innocence, now teetering on the edge of collapse. "Patrick, let's cut to the chase," Samuel declared, tossing the bag containing the necklace onto the table that stood between them. "This is a bespoke item, one of a kind. Who gave this to you?" Patrick's gaze shifted from the necklace to Samuel, his eyes flickering with a trace of anguish and defiance. "It was a gift," he replied steadily. "From friends. That's all I'm willing to share." "Friends? Who are they?" "You need to help us, Patrick. If these friends are as innocent as you claim, why shield them?" Samuel's tone was firm yet measured. Patrick shook his head, his eyes locked on Samuel's. "I can't disclose that. They're uninvolved in this, and so am I. I swear I had no part in what happened to Laura." Samuel exhaled in frustration, Patrick's reticence only amplifying his suspicions. Seeing that this line of questioning was leading nowhere, he decided it was time for a new approach. In his office, Samuel began to delve deeper into Patrick's history. He reviewed old files on missing persons, searching for any links that might tie Patrick or his enigmatic acquaintances to Laura's case. As the sleepless nights accumulated, Samuel uncovered an unsettling pattern. Several unresolved missing persons cases were connected, directly or indirectly, to Patrick. Most of these cases involved young women who had disappeared under mysterious circumstances, and Patrick's name had surfaced in the statements for at least 2 of them, albeit in a tangential way. Samuel also started noticing signs of corruption within the police department. Essential reports were missing, and key documents appeared to have been tampered with or vanished. It seemed as though someone was deliberately trying to obscure the past and steer the investigation away from the real story. His suspicion of a deeper conspiracy started to solidify. He realized that there were elements at play trying to ensure the case remained unsolved, with Patrick being merely a cog in a much bigger scheme. The investigator then chose to challenge his own colleagues, fully aware that his pursuit of justice might place him at odds with those who were meant to be his allies. A strained discussion with his boss gave him a subtle but clear warning. "Samuel, this case is complicated enough as it is," hinting at dangers he should avoid. But Samuel, adept at reading between the lines, understood he was starting to threaten people who stood to lose a lot should the truth emerge. Samuel was not one to back down easily. With every clue he uncovered, his resolve only strengthened. Discovering the necklace's link to past disappearances hinted that Patrick might be both a pawn and an unwitting partner in a much graver affair. Samuel made a vow to himself to uncover the truth behind Laura's fate and vindicate Patrick if he was indeed innocent. However, achieving this would require him to dig deeper than ever before, ready to confront not just criminals, but also those who were supposed to be his protectors. Back in his cluttered office, Samuel, surrounded by a sea of papers and evidence, grasped the necklace again, convinced that this simple piece was crucial to solving a bigger mystery. He reached for the phone to call a trusted contact, someone beyond the reach of the corrupted officers, ready to delve deeper and unveil the tangled web of deceit that had been hidden for too long. Samuel felt on the verge of uncovering a major revelation, one that could dramatically alter the destinies of all involved. He was about to shed light on hidden darkness, and he was prepared to face whatever challenges this might bring, even if it meant taking on the very system he was part of and risking his own career. In his office, amid piles of documents, Samuel Richards realized that his investigation of the necklace was leading him down a path filled with unexpected revelations. This was no ordinary missing persons case. It hinted at something much larger, a puzzle involving a shadowy group known only as the Sentinels. The Sentinels were a topic of hushed conversations, their name reverberating through the underworld like a well-kept secret. Samuel soon understood that this group operated from the shadows, meticulously organized and nearly invisible. What had initially seemed to be unrelated cases of disappearances now emerged as a deliberate and chilling pattern. The deeper Samuel dug, the more he found out about the Sentinels' role in these vanishings and their connections to powerful figures and legitimate enterprises, making them seemingly invincible. Samuel revisited past unsolved cases, starting to recognize a pattern typical of the Sentinels' operations. People vanished, leaving no clues, and those who got too close to the truth faced discouragement. As he connected the dots, the depth and complexity of the Sentinels' influence became apparent. Conversations with informants and fellow detectives brought up instances of bribes, threats, and even instances of police officers being compromised to shield the group's activities. This corruption within the force made Samuel's task even more perilous. But he didn't back down. He was aware that mere rumors wouldn't suffice. He needed irrefutable proof to stand up in court. With each document he scrutinized, he edged closer to tangible evidence, though the masterminds behind the Sentinels remained elusive. Patrick Morris, still incarcerated, closely followed the progress of Samuel's investigation. Patrick had deeper knowledge about Laura's disappearance than he had let on, but had remained silent, bound by past promises and loyalties. He hoped the truth would surface naturally, sparing him the need to betray confidences. Yet he observed Samuel's relentless pursuit, sensing that the long-concealed secrets might soon be exposed. Samuel Richards found himself deep in the maze of the Sentinels' case. As the investigation unfolded, it became evident that this was no mere vanishing or typical gang activity. The threads of corruption wove throughout, reaching even into his own team, complicating matters further. Samuel chose to proceed with utmost discretion. He safeguarded his discoveries, worried that any disclosure might end up in the wrong hands. Tension filled the air at the department. Samuel kept to himself, poring over documents in isolation and remaining vigilant against any signs of treachery. Trust had become something unattainable. Amidst this environment of suspicion, Samuel set up a meeting with a trusted informant, a figure well linked to the criminal underground, but not part of the police force. They met in a deserted warehouse, away from surveillance and curious eyes, where Samuel hoped to gather critical insights to advance the investigation. The informant, a man with a checkered history yet renowned for his dependable and insightful tips, showed up on time. With a wary glance around, he understood the peril of the situation and the risk of being spotted conversing with a cop. "The Sentinels go deeper than you might realize, Samuel," the informant said, igniting a cigarette. "They've infiltrated your squad, too." Samuel, already suspecting internal deceit, was seeking more substantial information. "What specifics can you give me? Who's pulling the strings? How do they function?" Samuel pressed. The informant inhaled deeply from his cigarette, fixing Samuel with a grave stare. "You need to know about Lucas Swanson. He's the key figure, and he's linked to Laura, the judge's daughter," the informant disclosed. Samuel's expression darkened. "What does linked mean? Is Laura still alive?" The informant confirmed with a nod. "Yes, she's alive, and has been seen with Lucas. The details of how or why she's involved are unclear to me. But what's certain is that Lucas Swanson is a dangerous individual, and Laura is entangled in something far beyond a mere disappearance." This information steered Samuel Richards' investigation in a new direction. Laura was not merely a victim. She was a crucial player in a complex web of influence and danger, with figures like Lucas Swanson at the center. Patrick appeared to have been unfortunately caught up in these events, facing unfounded accusations while possessing knowledge that could unravel the entire scheme. Back at his desk, Samuel's thoughts were a whirlwind as he re-evaluated all the facts before him. It was clear he needed to expose Lucas Swanson and uncover Laura's exact involvement to dismantle the Sentinels and absolve Patrick. This meant delicately balancing his movements between allies of dubious loyalty and foes masquerading as teammates. As the investigation neared its peak after relentless weeks filled with elusive clues and the constant threat of internal betrayal, Samuel pinpointed Lucas Swanson's location in a remote state. The plan to apprehend him was crafted with meticulous care, far from the potentially traitorous gaze of those who might tip off Lucas, giving him a chance to flee again. Samuel's squad advanced silently across the wooded expanse, encircling Lucas's secluded home, a substantial structure veiled by thickets that seemed almost complicit in concealing its secrets. The operation was quick and decisive. The officers burst in unexpectedly, breaching doors and navigating the shadowy interior. Lucas was apprehended in the living room, caught off guard, yet unresisting. Samuel felt the puzzle pieces were about to fall into place, but nothing prepared him for the next discovery. In a bedroom of the house, Laura was found, seemingly unharmed and composed amidst the chaos. Her calm demeanor suggested readiness rather than shock. For a moment, Samuel was at a loss for words. Laura, the supposedly abducted daughter of Judge Marta dos Reis, was here, cohabiting with Lucas Swanson under an assumed name. She walked up to the police willingly, without a hint of distress or regret. Once in custody for questioning, Laura began to unfold the true narrative of her circumstances. Years before, weary from her mother's strict oversight and relentless critiques of her choices, Laura chose to flee. At that time, her boyfriend, Lucas Swanson, presented a chance for her to break free from the constraints and reinvent her life. They meticulously planned her disappearance together, turning what appeared to be a kidnapping into a deliberate ruse. The necklace that Marta had identified in court was not a clue pointing to foul play, but rather a part of the elaborate charade Laura was directing. As Laura disclosed her story, Samuel learned a shocking truth. The formidable Sentinels organization, reputed for numerous disappearances and instilling widespread fear, was a fiction. It was a narrative concocted by corrupt police officers who used the fear of this non-existent group to cover their own failures and illicit activities. This facade allowed the corrupt officers to operate unchecked, weaving a narrative of danger that kept the public and their peers distracted. Patrick, who had always maintained his innocence, turned out to be just a pawn in their game. He had been aware of Laura's location all along, but chose silence to protect her and Lucas, enduring wrongful imprisonment for crimes he didn't commit. His commitment, while noble, had placed him in grave danger. With the full extent of the deception now laid bare, Samuel experienced a whirl of relief and dismay. He had peeled back layers of deceit and exposed the rot within his own ranks. But it pained him to see that Laura had deliberately chosen her course, disregarding the fallout on her loved ones. This revelation rocked both the police force and Marta's family, triggering a wave of re-evaluation and finally bringing to an end a tangled saga of secrecy and deceit. The revelation that Laura was alive rippled through the courtroom and beyond, shaking the media and piercing the heart of Judge Marta dos Reis with a storm of emotions. While relief might have been the first expected reaction, it was tangled with feelings of anger, sorrow, guilt, and a faint glimmer of hope. Marta's daughter, once thought lost to her forever, was indeed alive, but the circumstances surrounding her disappearance were fraught with troubling truths. Resolved to face her daughter, Marta embarked on the journey to the facility where Laura was detained. As she traveled, the distance seemed to stretch endlessly, paralleled only by the torment of her thoughts. Marta had always prided herself on being a vigilant and protective mother, perhaps excessively so, yet she had never envisioned that her protective instincts might inadvertently drive Laura into adopting a life built on deception and escape. When Marta arrived in the interview room, she immediately noticed Laura sitting calmly on the other side of the glass. The judge paused for a moment, observing her daughter with eyes brimming with tears. Laura appeared aged, more than she actually was, but her gaze was as determined as when she was a teenager. Marta entered, and a heavy silence enveloped the room. Laura looked up, their eyes meeting. A mix of surprise and understanding sparkled in both of their eyes. For a moment, neither knew where to start. Finally, Marta broke the silence, her voice firm yet choked with emotion. "Why, Laura? Why did you do this?" Marta asked, her voice quivering despite her efforts to remain composed. Laura inhaled deeply before answering. "Mom, I needed to be free. I loved Lucas, but you wouldn't accept him. You always tried to control me, deciding what was best for me. I just couldn't live like that anymore." Marta shook her head, struggling to grasp her daughter's words. "So, running away was your answer? Making us think you were dead or abducted? Do you realize how much that hurt me? And Patrick?" Laura's eyes dropped, visibly disturbed by the mention of Patrick's name. "I know, Mom, and I'm sorry. I didn't want it to get this out of hand. The necklace Patrick wore, it was from Lucas and me. It was meant to show that even though we were apart, we were still connected. Patrick got caught in this because of me, and I never intended for him to suffer." Laura's confession overwhelmed Marta with a surge of emotions. As a judge, Marta had always believed she was protecting her daughter by controlling her life, but now, confronted with the truth, she realized her overbearing ways might have driven Laura to Lucas and a life built on deception. Marta began to reevaluate every decision she had made, wondering what she might have done differently. "You can't imagine how much pain I felt over the years, thinking you were either dead or in peril," Marta said, her voice finally breaking under the strain of her tears. "And Patrick? I misjudged an innocent man. I condemned him without truly listening, without understanding his side." Laura stepped closer, gently touching her mother's shaking hand. "I know nothing I say now can undo what happened, but my actions were out of love, from a desperate need to be free, and I deeply regret the pain I caused." Marta looked at her daughter, seeing a reflection of both her own mistakes and hopes. The anger she had felt was fading, replaced by a painful realization that they were both trapped by their choices. They hugged, a profound embrace filled with years of absence, misunderstandings, and sorrow. Marta, still wrestling with her feelings, knew it would take time to fully reconcile, but this moment marked the beginning. For the first time ever, a mother and her daughter confronted each other not in roles of judgment, but as two individuals seeking to reconcile. Marta stepped out of the room, filled with a new resolve to make amends and to clear Patrick's name. She understood the complex road ahead, but felt prepared to accept the consequences of her past actions and renew her connection with Laura. It marked the beginning of their journey towards forgiveness and healing, a path Marta was determined to follow no matter the challenges. On this day, the courtroom buzzed with a distinctly different energy. The once murky case of Patrick Morris was now viewed under a brighter light, catalyzed by Samuel Richards's diligent investigation and the critical disclosures from Laura. The trial had been reopened, now carrying the promise of delivering true justice. Samuel sat attentively, a mix of relief and gratification washing over him as his tireless pursuit of the truth was finally being recognized. The evidence he unearthed, ranging from witness testimonies to crucial documents and exposés on the deceitful Sentinels organization, was now prominently displayed, dismantling the former charges against Patrick. The defense lawyer laid out the new proofs, pointing out the errors and manipulations in the system that had wrongfully convicted Patrick. Marta dos Reis, once the judge at Patrick's trial, now found herself among the spectators, taking on the roles of a mother, a witness, and crucially, a seeker of redemption. It was a strange and tough position for her, yet she recognized her responsibility. Nervously, she awaited her chance to speak, mentally rehearsing her prepared remarks. When called upon, Marta rose and approached the witness stand. A hushed silence enveloped the courtroom, signaling the gravity of her upcoming words. Facing Patrick and then the judge, Marta inhaled deeply and began, "Your Honor, esteemed members of the court, and all gathered here," her voice steady yet laden with emotion. "Today, I stand before you not only as a witness to the failures of our justice system, but as someone who herself overlooked the truth." She went on to confess her error in not fully exploring Patrick's defense and acknowledged that her personal biases and pains had clouded her judgment, detracting from her commitment to fair justice. She discussed the undue pressures and controls she had placed on her daughter Laura, and how these actions contributed to the resulting turmoil. "Patrick Morris is an innocent man," Marta asserted, her voice faltering. "He was ensnared by decisions that I too was a part of. I seek forgiveness from him, from this court, and from all those affected by the prolonged injustice." As Marta took her seat, the courtroom remained silent, a rare moment witnessing a figure of her stature openly acknowledge her errors. The impact of her confession was clear on the faces of those present. Patrick, sitting at the defense table, was visibly moved. Yet he appeared composed, comforted by the truth finally coming to light. With the introduction of new evidence and Marta's heartfelt declaration, the judge swiftly delivered his verdict. Patrick Morris was exonerated of all charges, and the allegations against him were formally dismissed. The room buzzed with murmurs and a soft round of applause as Patrick exhaled in relief, sensing the heavy burden of years-long injustice begin to ease off his shoulders. Outside the courtroom, Samuel's efforts were making a broader impact. The corrupt police system that had exploited the myth of the Sentinels to cover up disappearances was now unraveling. Internal probes had started, pinpointing and holding accountable the officers involved. Samuel, having risked a great deal to uncover the truth, received public commendation for his courage and honesty, affirming that there were still those in law enforcement who championed justice. At the hearing's conclusion, Patrick and Marta approached one another. No words were exchanged initially, but their mutual gaze conveyed deep understanding, recognition of past errors, and a silent vow to proceed without resentment. With a clearer sky above, Marta, Patrick, and Samuel left the courthouse, feeling a renewed peace with the truth now laid bare. While much remained to mend and many steps lay ahead, a crucial stride towards restoring justice had been taken. For Marta, this marked the start of an extensive journey toward forgiveness, not only for Patrick and Laura, but for herself as well. Samuel, who had observed every development, was content with the outcome. He recognized that the struggle for justice was far from over, but for now he could take a slight breath of relief, comforted by his role in righting a wrong that had deeply affected many. As the soft glow of the late afternoon sun washed over the house where Marta, Laura, and Lucas had gathered, it felt like the first complete family reunion in years, brought together under extraordinary circumstances. The strain and sorrow of the past few days were slowly giving way to a fragile peace as each person sought to find their footing in the aftermath of upheaval. Watching Laura, now alongside Lucas, Marta gained a fresh understanding. She saw in Laura a woman who had battled for her autonomy and love, despite the hurt her decisions might have caused. Marta realized that Laura's actions weren't just acts of rebellion or a rejection of authority, but stemmed from a profound need to live freely away from the constraints that Marta had, albeit unintentionally, imposed. Gathered around the table, Marta, Laura, and Lucas discussed the path forward. They acknowledged the need to rebuild and engage in many honest conversations, but most importantly, they were ready to make an effort. Laura, with a tentative smile, clasped Lucas's hand, and for the first time, Marta viewed this not as a defiance of her authority, but as a testament to the love that had sustained Laura throughout her tumultuous years of uncertainty and escape. "I know this won't be easy," Marta voiced gently, piercing the quiet, "but I want to make an effort. I'm here to support you, to be part of your lives, and to welcome my grandchild with an open heart." Laura's smile widened, and she squeezed her mother's hand warmly. "Thank you, Mom. That means everything to us. We've made tough decisions, but we're ready to begin anew, together." Lucas, often at the center of past conflicts between Laura and Marta, looked at Marta with genuine respect and honesty. "I've always wanted what's best for Laura, Mrs. Marta. It was never my intention to pull her away from you. Now, I hope we can all move forward as a family, despite our past differences." Marta nodded, feeling a surge of unexpected relief. Acceptance might be a small step, but for her, it opened the door to forgiveness and rekindled the love that had been obscured by years of fear and stubborn pride. With Laura's baby on the way, a sense of renewal filled the air. They decided to return to the city where everything had first begun, prepared to embrace the future with a focus on the present and the wisdom of past lessons. Marta's old house would be renovated, not only in its structure, but as a home ready to welcome all the changes that time brings. Patrick, though absent from this reunion, remained part of this new chapter. He had moved to a peaceful place, far from the chaos that had once overshadowed his life. Nevertheless, he stayed in contact with Laura and Lucas, nurturing a friendship that, despite past turbulence, had never truly faded. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, Marta, Laura, and Lucas looked out at the landscape, each lost in their own thoughts, yet bound by an unspoken hope. They couldn't change what had passed, but the future lay open before them, and they were committed to filling it with new memories, laughter, and most importantly, the peace they had sought for so long. For the three of them, this was the beginning of a new chapter. The scars of their past would remain, but now they were parts of a story that had made them stronger. They were ready to build a life where past mistakes would simply remind them of roads they would never tread again. With the baby's arrival, they looked forward to a future filled with both challenges and happiness. Together, they felt sure they could face anything as long as they stayed united. As night settled in and the stars lit up the sky, there was a quiet certainty that they were finally where they were meant to be, together, ready for a fresh start. If you enjoyed today's story, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more stories like this one. Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.